Now let's talk about a small country with a surprising underwater history, Albania. During the Cold War, the world was divided. You had the United States and its allies on one side, and the Soviet Union and its allies on the other. It was a tense time. Everyone was preparing for a potential conflict. Albania, a small nation on the Adriatic Sea, found itself right in the middle of this global standoff. Its strategic location made its coastline very important. Controlling the seas was a top priority for the major powers, and Albania wanted to make sure it could defend its own patch of water. Albania initially allied itself with the Soviet Union. This was a crucial relationship. The Soviets had a powerful navy, including a large fleet of submarines. In the 1950s, as part of this alliance, the Soviet Union decided to establish a submarine base in Albania. They chose Pashaliman Bay, a perfect natural harbour on the Albanian coast. It was sheltered and deep, ideal for hiding submarines from prying eyes. This base became the only Soviet naval outpost in the Mediterranean, giving them a huge strategic advantage. For Albania, it was a chance to modernise its military and gain access to advanced Soviet technology. This partnership didn't last forever, though. By the early 1960s, Albania's leader, Enver Hoxha, had a major falling out with the Soviet Union. The political relationship completely broke down. When the Soviets decided to abandon the Pashaliman base, they tried to take all their equipment with them, including the submarines stationed there. But the Albanians had other ideas. They felt the submarines were part of the deal. In a bold move, Albanian forces surrounded the base and physically blocked the Soviets from taking 4 of the submarines. It was a tense standoff, a real David and Goliath situation. This is how Albania suddenly found itself with its very own submarine fleet. It was an unexpected twist of fate. The country went from having no submarines to possessing 4 advanced Soviet-built vessels almost overnight. This was a massive deal for a small nation. The Albanians now had the tools to patrol their own coastline and project power in the Adriatic. It was a declaration of independence and a symbol of their defiance. They had stood up to a superpower and won, securing a powerful asset that would define their navy for decades to come. The submarines Albania acquired were known as Whiskey-class submarines. This was a NATO reporting name for the Soviet project 613. These were diesel-electric submarines, tough and reliable machines built in large numbers after World War II. They weren't nuclear-powered, so they couldn't stay submerged for months on end. They had to surface or use a snorkel to run their diesel engines and recharge their batteries. But for their time, they were effective patrol submarines. They were armed with torpedoes and could also be used to lay mines, making them a serious threat to any enemy ships trying to enter Albanian waters. The 4 submarines were given new names by the Albanian Navy. They became known as Tirana, Vlora, Durrës and Shkodra, named after major Albanian cities. The main mission for this small fleet was defence. Albania's leader was famously paranoid about an invasion from either the West or his former allies in the East. These submarines were the first line of defence for the nation's long coastline. Their job was to patrol the Strait of Otranto, the narrow passage connecting the Adriatic Sea to the Mediterranean. They were a deterrent, a clear message to any potential aggressor. Stay out of our waters. Life for the Albanian submariners was demanding. They had to learn to operate and maintain these complex Soviet machines without any help from their original builders. They trained relentlessly, practicing patrols and attack drills. The goal was to keep the fleet ready for action at a moment's notice. These crews became a small elite force within the Albanian military. They were guardians of the coast, spending long periods submerged in the cramped, challenging conditions of their Whiskey-class boats. Their dedication was essential to keeping the fleet operational and ensuring Albania's maritime security during a very uncertain period. These submarines were not just for show. They were actively used for patrols and surveillance missions for nearly 3 decades. They kept an eye on the naval traffic passing through the Adriatic, gathering intelligence and asserting Albanian sovereignty. While they never fired a torpedo in anger, their presence was a constant factor in the region's military balance. For a small country like Albania, having a submarine fleet was a source of immense national pride. It was proof that they could stand on their own and defend themselves, a powerful symbol of their fierce independence and military resolve against much larger nations. The end of the Cold War and the fall of communism in Albania brought big changes. The country began opening up to the world, and its military priorities shifted. Maintaining a fleet of aging Soviet-era submarines was expensive and difficult. Spare parts were nearly impossible to find, and the boats themselves were becoming obsolete. By the late 1990s, the once proud submarine fleet was no longer operational. The 4 vessels were retired from service, left to sit at the Pasha-Liman naval base. Their days of silent patrols were over, and a new chapter in their story was about to begin. For years, 3 of the 4 submarines simply rusted away at the docks. They became ghostly relics of a bygone era. Eventually, the decision was made to scrap most of them. The metal from these Cold War warriors was sold off, a sad but practical end for such historic machines. However, one submarine was saved from this fate. The submarine known as Vlora, or number 105, was set aside. There was a growing recognition that these vessels were an important part of the nation's history, and that at least one should be preserved for future generations to see. This last remaining submarine, number 105, has a unique and interesting status. It still sits at the Pasha-Liman base, a silent monument to Albania's Cold War past. There have been many discussions about turning it into a museum. The idea is to move it to a more accessible location, perhaps in the city of Vlora, and allow the public to go inside and experience what life was like for its crew. This would be an incredible tourist attraction and a powerful educational tool. It would give people a tangible connection to a unique period in their country's history, a time of defiance and self-reliance. The story of Albania's submarine fleet is more than just a military footnote. It is a symbol of the nation's journey. These submarines represent a time when Albania stood alone, determined to forge its own path. They are a testament to the country's defiance against superpowers and its commitment to defending its sovereignty. Preserving the last of these incredible machines is about honoring that legacy. It's a way of remembering the courage and skill of the Albanian sailors who operated them. This lone submarine is a powerful echo from the depths, a reminder of a small nation with a big spirit of survival.